The next item of business today is a members' business debate on motion number 7731 in the name of Mike MacKenzie on the best buildings in Scotland. The debate will be concluded without any questions being put, and I would be grateful if those members who wish to speak in the debate could please press the request to speak buttons now. I would also ask our guests leaving the gallery to do so as quietly as possible, since this Parliament is still in session. And I call on Mike MacKenzie to open the debate. 7 minutes, please, Mr MacKenzie.
Presiding Officer, I have a dream. I have a dream that in the future all of our buildings will be as well designed as those shortlisted in this year's Doolan Prize. And I have a dream that in the future architecture in Scotland will assume a much higher importance than it enjoys today. Because architecture is the most public of arts. It touches all of us. We live with it every day of our lives. We live with it for generations. When a fundamental necessity of life is shelter in a climate like ours, especially in a climate like ours, Presiding Officer, we need more architecture. We need more great architecture. And since the advent of devolution, Scotland's architects have responded to a new sense of confidence in Scotland. Perhaps this award, established in 2002, is part of that resurgence of confidence. Perhaps the fact that the Doolan Prize is the largest architectural prize in the UK reflects this new confidence, and most of all reflects our ambition, our aspiration that we can and we will build a better Scotland. Presiding Officer, the very fact of imagining, then designing and then beginning to build that better future will in itself help to usher in that better future. And prizes are important. Like the First Minister's Saltire Prize for Marine Renewables, the Doolan Prize helps set the bar of our ambition higher than it would be otherwise, as high as it should be. I'm glad, therefore, that the Scottish Government helps support this prize. And the great thing about good architecture is that it's not just its own reward to be admired and enjoyed at a purely aesthetic level. It pays off in so many other ways, in very real and tangible ways. It would be wrong, Presiding Officer, this afternoon to talk about any of the projects that have been shortlisted this year, but perhaps some of those that have previously won or been shortlisted for this or even other awards might illustrate this point. Riachan Hall's Pier Art Centre in Stromness springs first to my mind, host to an exhibition on my last visit to no less an artist and a well-known painter than Lowry, uplifting the minds and the spirit of Arcadians and visitors alike, and helping to fill the cash registers of local businesses. And as if this wasn't enough for the small town of Stromness, Malcolm Fraser's currently building the new library, helping to revitalise and regenerate a town with a historic past and a bright future. Because Arcadians are greedy for good architecture. They get it. Orkney Islands Council get it. They know that quality architecture will pay for itself many times over in its lifespan. But, Presiding Officer, I can't mention Orkney without also mentioning Shetland, where at Grodeans I came across what is quite simply the best social housing development I've ever seen. The only one in which I've ever thought that I would love to live there. Yatland Housing Association and Richard Gibson's Architects are both due great credit for this project, which will pay for itself in better social outcomes, in better health outcomes, in less crime, and in people living more fulfilling and rewarding lives. If time permitted, I could talk at length about the many other good architectural projects that we've seen over the last decade or so, but there are some other points I'd like to make. We're beginning to talk now a lot about whole life costs, because it's not the initial cost of a building that's important, but the cost of ownership per annum. The fact is, and it can be amply demonstrated, that good quality architecture costs less per annum than buildings that are commissioned and built with low initial costs in mind. We rob ourselves when we follow the cheap route towards apparent value. What is less often talked about is the huge added value that's delivered in good architecture that is not included in any standard accounting. The effects on health and happiness and everything in between, all of which has a huge value and which we pay for most when they're absent. I have hopes that some economist of talent will take up this cause and do an analytical study of the real value of good architecture, although I think that many of us know intuitively that the added value I'm suggesting is significant and indisputable. Presiding Officer, my previous career as a builder was intensely practical, but I'm also an unashamed and unrepentant dreamer. And the final part of this dream is that we build our better Scotland in our unique Scottish way, establishing a new vernacular as a response to the 21st century, to its problems and its challenges and its opportunities, reflecting our climate, reflecting our culture, reflecting our values, learning international lessons, but not being dominated or overwhelmed by these. After all, we Scots know what is best for Scotland.
Thank you. Now turn to the open debate. Speeches of 4 minutes, please. And I call Patricia Ferguson, to be followed by David Torrance.
Thank you very much, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I firstly congratulate Mike MacKenzie for bringing to the Chamber a very timely and a very interesting subject for debate. I would, however, say that there's one small point I would perhaps ever so slightly disagree with Mr MacKenzie about, and that is that I believe that architecture is highly regarded in Scotland, and that even more so, Scottish architecture is highly regarded internationally too. I know that when I had occasion to speak about Scottish architecture in other countries, people recognised the buildings I was talking about. They recognised the architects I was talking about, and they rarely had anything but praise for those people. So I think that we should celebrate, as Mike MacKenzie says, but perhaps consider ourselves fortunate in the architects and indeed the work of architects that we have in this country. And this year's shortlist, I believe, contains some truly stunning entries, and they're a real contrast one with another in terms of both architecture and the use to which those buildings will be put, from family homes to community art centres, and from work areas and commercial areas to contemplative spaces. And having examined the photographs of many, visited one or two, and read the architects' comments on the buildings, I'm sure of one thing and one thing only, and that is that I would not have wanted to be a member of the judging panel for this competition. Because looking at the range of buildings on offer, it's clear to me that we have a diversity of architectural type and design, and influences that have come to those architects have been, yes, from the local locality, have been from the purpose and the functionality that they've been asked in the brief to consider, but also from a great deal of imagination and consideration about what will work and what will inspire and allow people to stretch their own imaginations going forward. Two of the projects that are shortlisted this evening are, in and of themselves, about the creative arts, the Beacon Arts Centre in Greenock and Mareel in Shetland. And looking at both of those buildings and looking at their settings, I don't think you could fail to be inspired creatively to do the best of the work that you could do. And similarly, the Sir Duncan Rice Library in Aberdeen, which is a cube of ice and light reflecting the situation of the weather that we often find in the north of the country, seems to me to be a wonderful place to have the opportunity to study and to look forward and to do your very best indeed. And of course, in terms of some of the other buildings where the locality has influenced it, particularly the Turf House, seemed to me to be a fantastic example of looking at the environmental aspects of a building and its architecture and of taking that forward. Now, it's probably invidious of me to mention just some of them, but I genuinely think every single one of them is worthy of the shortlist. And I would just mention the Ghost of Water Row, because it was in my own city, not my constituency. But what it does share with my constituency is that, like Govan, Maryhill became part of Glasgow at perhaps a later date than some localities. So I have a great deal of sympathy with the idea of that celebration and that commemoration. I think this evening's event is going to be a truly wonderful ceremony, and I'm truly sorry that I'm not going to be able to be there. I've been at others in the past and enjoyed them hugely, but I do have another engagement that I must attend. And I would want to recognise the extraordinary generosity of the Doolan family over the years, commemorating someone who really did help to lead the way in this field. And I would also want to recognise the support given by successive governments too. Now, one small thing that I hadn't planned to say, but I feel I really must. I'm sorry that Mr MacKenzie hasn't seen social housing before that would have inspired him to want to live in it. As someone who lived in social housing for more than half of my life, when I think about it, I have to say that some of the social housing that we have in Scotland is tremendous. And if you look at the winners of architectural prizes across the board, housing associations are consistently ranked at the top and are often the winners of those prizes. So I think we can be very proud of some of the very good social housing that's come through. I realise the one that Mr MacKenzie saw is probably an exemplar of that, but I think we should be very proud of that, as well as proud of all the other fantastic buildings for other purposes that are shortlisted tonight.
Thank you very much. I call David Torrance to be followed by Annabel Goldie.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I too would like to thank Mike MacKenzie for bringing this debate to the Chamber this afternoon. I am proud to join my colleagues today in congratulating 12 of the winners of the 2013 Royal Incorporation of Architects Scotland Awards. All of the winning buildings are testament to Scottish ability and raw creative talent, in addition to those of various international partners involved. I wish everyone involved the best of luck in tonight's awards ceremony and congratulate everyone on their accomplishments. I was especially proud of my fellow Fifers following the announcement of these awards when I saw the new Dunfermline High School was not only recognised as an award winner by the RIAS, but also as the Zero Waste Scotland Award winner in the special category of resource efficiency. After the years of hard work and planning that has gone into construction of the new Dunfermline High School building, the Fife Council Property Services and Education Service, and everyone involved from the school and elsewhere should be proud of their collective accomplishment. Opened in August 2012, the school is a flagship project of Fife Council's Building Fife's Future programme, which has invested £126 million in new schools around Fife, including a new secondary school for Kirkcaldy and £40 million for Dunfermline High School. The programme is designed to build state-of-the-art schools that are highly adaptable, functional and sustainable places of learning into the 21st century and beyond. Sustainable design was a key part to the plan for Dunfermline High School and accounts for its selection for the Zero Waste Award. The Building Fife Future programme set targets for school from outset and ultimately managed to achieve a BREEAM Excellent rating and an EPC A rating for the building. This was done through passive design measures in ventilation and natural lighting, as well as advanced recycling systems and renewable energy systems, such as rainwater collection and installation of solar panels. The initial construction process also focused on resource efficiency, as subcontractors were encouraged to come up with innovative waste reduction ideas. 100% of all excavated soil was reused, saving 60,000, and minimising the environmental impact on both transportation of the soil to landfill and leaving it there. Furthermore, 94% of subcontractors were based within 50 miles of school, meaning that Fife businesses were supported and less carbon was spent on transportation. But more importantly, the building is a testament to what architecture should be all about for the people who use them every day. The beauty of this building is that it achieves these things while being exactly what the school needs. School administrators, teachers and pupils were all involved in the design process from the very beginning. This can be seen in the widespread usage of natural lighting, flexible learning areas, open spaces within the building, all of which were pupil requests. The open spaces and excellent overall visibility within the building also contributes to see and be seen approach to building design, promoted by school administrators, which has proven to cut down on bullying by creating fewer corners for bullies to lurk in. As an educational institute, the new Dunfermline High School is top of the line, designed to accommodate 1,800 pupils. The building is equipped with a large assembly hall, with tiered seating, a modern library, complex resources centre, approximately 1,200 computers or laptops and full wireless technology. The new school's infrastructure is designed to support student life both inside and out of the classroom, as the school includes a drama studio with rehearsal rooms, dance studio, a sports hall, a fitness suite, 2 gymnasiums and extensive playing fields, including a large astro pitch. Finally, a cafeteria and coffee bar and a colourful glazed 3-storey wall all contribute to helping to create relaxing communal areas which makes the school feel more alive than institutionalised. Since 1468, Dunfermline High School has been an educational hub for Dunfermline and Fife. In August 2012, the school began a new chapter of educational excellence. Thanks to excellent investment strategy of Fife Council through the Buildings Fife's Future programme and the outstanding abilities of BAM Construction, young people of Dunfermline have been blessed with this remarkable school for generations to come. It is for these and many other reasons that Dunfermline High School has most deservingly won the RIAS Award and the Zero Waste Scotland Award in specific category for resource efficiency. All 12 RIAS Award winners have similar stories of improving the lives of everyday Scots through investment in community centres, such as schools and theatres across Scotland. I commend the RIAS for recognising their accomplishments and look forward to finding out who the winner of the Andrew-Doolan Best Building in Scotland Award will be later tonight.
Thank you very much. I now call Annabel Goldie to be followed by Joan McAlpine.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. It is a great pleasure to take part in this debate, and I too thank Mike MacKenzie for bringing the debate to the Parliament. I should declare an interest in that I have been invited to become an honorary fellow of the Royal Incorporation of Architects in Scotland, an invitation which I have with great pleasure accepted. I don't have an entry in the register of interest as yet because the process, I think, is embryonic rather than complete. I believe I have to attend a dinner next year and make a speech, at which point I am in, so to speak. But I do think the RIAS is an important influencer in Scottish affairs in general, and most particularly in the important arena of our built environment. And there is widespread evidence, as Patricia Ferguson said, of that all over Scotland. And that influence is captured well in the motion. In no way is the RIAS either passive or purely advisory. It's a catalyst in the encouragement of creative design and build, both in its programme of activities and, of course, in the awards scheme to which the motion refers. And I, too, congratulate the 12 winners of the 2013 awards. They reflect the cream of talent within the profession. But when we recognise that they emerged from 75 submissions from throughout Scotland, that is in itself a tribute to the calibre of ability to be found amongst practitioners. And it's also an inspiring contribution to the shape of our future built environment. One of the 12 winning projects is the Beacon Arts Centre in Greenock. I can speak at first hand about its attributes. This is a superb facility in a stunning location. And I was privileged to listen to Nicola Benedetti playing in the state-of-the-art theatre. I have attended an art exhibition in the flexible conference area. And I may say on more than one occasion I have enjoyed delicious food in the bistro. And this imaginative and attractive facility has given a real lift to the Inverclyde environment. As others have said, the Andrew-Doolan Best Building in Scotland Award will be chosen this evening from the 12 award winners, and that will be announced and presented in the Parliament this evening. I too, like Patricia Ferguson, unfortunately cannot be present, having another engagement in Glasgow, but that will be a prestigious triumph for the successful contender. I only hope, Deputy Presiding Officer, my absence doesn't scupper either my honorary fellowship or my free dinner. The phrase built environment can sound rather abstract, a bit Greek, and yet arguably there is no more important influence on how we live, where we work and how we relax. Historically, people congregated where there were centres of activity. Perhaps it was trading, access to a market, or maritime activity identified with a river or coastal location. And a built environment then developed to accommodate people and their families and to create ancillary facilities for trade and worship. Now, much of that, as we all know, has left a fascinating legacy of historic interest and quaintness, the length and breadth of the United Kingdom, and many of these buildings, despite being hundreds of years old, are iconic. But equally fascinating to me is when architects have been asked to address a new human and social need and to create a built environment appropriate to that. I have much enjoyed reading a chronicle of post-war history, David Kynaston's Tales of a New Jerusalem, and I commend that to anybody who's interested in how we have evolved in the last 70 years. It's readable, it's fascinating. But it also shines a light on how we've become shaped as a society in the last 70 years. Now, much of that's down to political intervention, but a great deal of it is down to our built environment. And featuring prominently in this chronicle is the built environment. We sometimes forget the first Town and Country Planning Act was actually only passed in 1947, just over 60 years ago, and yet that act was hugely influential in shaping much of our current environment. And in addressing the post-war challenges of devastated locations where new housing was absolutely paramount and needed, it was fascinating to look at how architects addressed these challenges with the concept of new towns, with the concept of how do we address scarcity of land by building upwards. We didn't always perhaps get it right, but that has been vital in informing, as Mike MacKenzie was saying, how we approach design now. And that experience from these earlier pioneering projects has been instructive. As Mike MacKenzie said, Scotland faces challenges. We face an increasing emerging trend of an increasing proportion of elderly people. That's good, but it does mean we need to think of how our built environment should adjust to that over the next 20, 30 or 40 years. Deputy Presiding Officer, in conclusion, with the architectural talents so clearly available in Scotland and with a dynamic and engaged body like the RIAS, I feel confident about the future of our Scottish built environment.
Many thanks. I now call Joan McAlpine to be followed by Jean Urquhart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And can I add my congratulations to Mike MacKenzie on securing the debate and, like other members, to the 12 winners of the 2013 Royal Incorporation of Architects in Scotland Awards, who make up the shortlist for the RIAS Andrew-Doolan Best Building in Scotland Award. And I have to add my apologies to those of other members in not being able to attend the event this evening because I too have another engagement. I would like to congratulate RIAS for the excellent work they do, recognising and promoting exceptional Scottish architecture. And I'd also like to take the opportunity in this debate to pay tribute to the former RIAS Secretary, Professor Charles McKean, who members will be aware died last month. Professor McKean was the Professor of Scottish Architectural History at Dundee University and did so much more than any other person to promote awareness and pleasure in vernacular Scottish architecture. And just a brief look at some of the many publications he published over his career really does tell you a lot about the breadth of our architecture and the richness of our architecture. If you look at the titles, he's written about the Scottish toll booth, obviously castles, what kind of Renaissance port was Dundee, Tain and Whithorn as pilgrimage towns, Jacobean villas, and you get the sense of, a country which, for its size, has just an enormous breadth of different architectural styles, and we owe him a great deal. Now, going forward, good design is not just defined by how a building looks. It's measured by its physical, social, environmental and functional value, and that's what these awards pay tribute to. I'm a South of Scotland MSP, and I noticed that unfortunately that there aren't any South of Scotland buildings on the list. However, like Annabel Goldie, I have visited the Beacon Arts Centre in Greenock, and that's where I'm from. And just to add to what Ms Goldie said, it replaces the Arts Guild Arts Centre in Greenock, which was a very much loved traditional building, and generations of people went through it, attending pantomimes. For many people, that was the only place where they maybe went to an arts event or saw the theatre or participated perhaps in a school concert. I know I certainly did. And so it's a hard act to follow when, you know, a building like that is so loved by the community. But the Beacon Arts Centre is an example of a modern piece of architecture which has already been embraced by the community that it's serving, and is probably attracting a lot more people to become involved in the arts. And certainly when I was there for an event launching the late George Wiley's paper boats in celebration of his work, there were a lot of school children there, and there were a lot of local people, and it was very participative. And I'd also pay tribute to the way that building reflects the seagoing nature of the people of Inverclyde, and the building really connects with the river, which is just so important to the people of Inverclyde. There's an increasing awareness of the value of architecture in place in Scotland and the role it plays in national and local life, and I'm pleased to pay tribute to the Scottish Government's Creating Places policy statement published last month that notes the quality of our built environment makes a radical improvement to the quality of our lives. The policy aims to place the design and development sector at the heart of a cross-disciplinary strategy to address a variety of economic, environmental and social aims, ranging from the promotion of our culture and heritage to tackling issues such as climate change and fuel poverty. Within the South of Scotland region I represent, there are some strong examples of how Scottish architects have contributed to these aims. This year, the innovative Abbotsford Visitors Centre reception created by CDN Architects was shortlisted for an RIAS award. The reception building will welcome visitors to one of Scotland's great cultural sites, providing a symbolic new gateway to the home of Sir Walter Scott, located near Melrose in the heart of the Scottish borders. The construction of the centre as part of the extensive refurbishment and repair to Scott's world-famous home is a great example of how modern architecture can enhance and preserve our historic environment, and is expected to draw a great many visitors to that part of Scotland. And I would commend that, and indeed the buildings on this shortlist, to all members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now call Jean Urquhart to be followed by Stuart Stevenson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak today and on the best buildings in Scotland, and I thank Mike MacKenzie for bringing his motion to debate. I'd also like to congratulate the 12 winners of the 2013 Royal Incorporation of Architects in Scotland Awards, and I wish each of them luck for the Andrew-Doolan Best Building in Scotland Award that will be announced here later today. I have either seen or seen photographs of the winning designs online, and they look truly innovative and worthy of their place. Some of them have been referred to earlier. Mike MacKenzie said that he had a dream, and I think I too share that dream of seeing architecture in its really important place that it has in Scottish culture. And for that to grow. Patricia Ferguson made a really good point that often Scottish architects and Scottish architecture are recognised abroad. However, I do think that there is still a job to be done for Scotland generally, for the nation to recognise some of its well-known contemporary architects. I think we're beginning to get the hang of recognising those who made their mark in the past, but we still have some way to go. And I'm just going to mention, I don't think I've told this story in this chamber before, but a number of years ago I visited a school in the East End of Glasgow where the head teacher had a particular interest in the arts, and her expression of that was throughout the school. There were drawings, children's drawings of what were clearly Macintosh designs on the staircase. And when we had an opportunity later on to speak to some of the 6- and 7-year-olds who'd drawn them, I was asking what they were. And with great indignation, a 6-year-old said to me, "Do you not know who that is? That's Macintosh. He's a famous Scottish architect." And he said, and another thing, he said, we've not only done Macintosh, we've done Greek Tamsin and all. So when he was later talking to him afterwards, he said that he too would like to be an architect. So I think raising awareness is everything. I think what the Doolan family have done, together with the RIAS in this competition, is spectacular. I might have a plea too that going back to the recognition for some of our older buildings and the architectural history and heritage of Scotland, of which we're very proud, I think it's time that we had some tourist trails to some of the most modern buildings that we have and the most contemporary architecture in Scotland, because we have everything to win and everything to be proud of. We could start with this one, of course. Architectural competitions, although often difficult for architects and time-consuming and always in Scotland attract a considerable number of practices making bids, and the total number in this competition has been mentioned already. So although we're seeing only 12, I suspect that there are others that would fascinate us just as well. And I think I would like to just perhaps, I know that Mike MacKenzie tried to take intervention with Patricia Ferguson, and I suspect it's to correct the fact that although he would really like to live and was inspired by the Jutland Housing Association houses in Shetland that are absolutely stunning, it wasn't that it was the only or the first time that he'd ever been impressed by social housing and new designs that are happening across Scotland. But this kind of competition, I think, really genuinely does raise awareness. I think we have to do a bit more. I think that architecture, just like art and music and other creative art forms, need to be knitted and rooted into our education system, and I think that can happen. There is another competition, I think the deadline is next week, for our island home, asking architects to design a house that is energy efficient for less than £100,000, and I think that too will be of real interest to a lot of our communities in the Highlands and Islands, the area that I represent, to design a house for under £100,000.
I must ask you to close, please.
I would just finally like to thank both the Doolan family and the RIAS for the works that they do and for this competition. Thank you.
Many thanks. And finally, in the open debate, Stuart Stevenson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you to Mike MacKenzie, the builder, not Bob the builder, Mike the builder, for the opportunity to debate this important subject. And of course, in describing himself as a builder, he perhaps underrates the contribution that his profession makes to these fine buildings that we have around Scotland. Somebody has to design them, yes, but at the end of the day, it's the builders of Scotland who deliver them. And of course, the history of our buildings progressed for a very long time without the profession of architects having been separately identified and emerged. And yet the skills of the architect are clearly present when you look at many of the buildings around Scotland. I was privileged to attend Aberdeen University and went to both the colleges there, both King's and Marshall, and of course in the quite distinct and separate ways, centuries apart, they represented the epitome of good design of architecture of their time. It is, of course, as Jean Urquhart made reference to, an absolute privilege for us all to be here, not simply because we've achieved the support of a necessary part of the electorate, but more fundamentally because we work in one of the iconic buildings of modern Scotland, created by architects, delivered by builders. And so that's important. And of course, what makes a good building is a number of different things. It's material, locality and function, drawn together in conjunction by the skills of the architect to create something that's appropriate for its environment, distinctive, effective and going to endure. And of course, the skills that we have in Scotland in our architects stem from our historical alignment with the need for education. A builder needs to be able to do calculations to work out how many bricks or stones they're going to need to get the proportions correct. And an architect takes that to another level. Think of how many places around the world we remember, not just for the people that we meet in these places, but for the buildings that we see. I congratulate Annabel Goldie on her forthcoming elevation to the fellowship of the RIAS to add to the lustre of her deputy lieutenancy. I, at this stage, have yet to be invited to be anything apart from Alan Cochrane giving me low abuse in the last month and wanting to award me something far less distinguished. I am going to be invidious in this debate. And I'm going to single out the Sir Duncan Rice Library in Aberdeen, because it is, in the context of Old Aberdeen, a quite stunning building. You turn the corner from Old Aberdeen, from King's College, and suddenly you look up this narrowing vista, a slight rise, and the surprise that you experience when you see this wonderful building glistening in the sun, facing as it does to the southeast. And, of course, inside, the space and grace that is provided for the students who are studying there some 50 years after me exemplifies all that's good in modern architecture. And I certainly know that it's too late to have any influence on the judges with the awards being tonight. I'm sure the trophy has the name engraved on it already. But if there's a chance for a late change of mind, should that be necessary, I encourage that to take place. Architects show ambition. It is a time for ambition in Scotland. I wish every one of the 12 finalists all the very best. Whoever wins, it will be an exemplar for modern Scotland. Presiding Officer.
Many thanks. Can I now invite Fiona Hislop to respond to the debate? Cabinet Secretary, 7 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I also want to congratulate Mike MacKenzie for securing the debate and for making a fine speech on this issue. Over the last 11 years, the RIAS Andrew-Doolan Award for Best Building in Scotland has showcased and has celebrated our best new Scottish architecture. And it has done this not only through its award-winning schemes, but also through the remarkable strength of the associated shortlists each year. It is difficult to overstate the value of well-designed architecture to the kind of place that I'm sure we all want Scotland to be. And the quality of the buildings in which we live and work, that we use or we simply pass each day, strongly affects our perception of the quality of our lives. And the quality of our cities, our towns and rural architecture, where it is at its best, is a great source of national pride. It is therefore vitally important that we constantly aim to improve the quality of Scotland's built environment. Awards for architectural design are immensely valuable in relation to this aim, in that they display the highest quality of work and act as a spur for excellence. The award for Best Building in Scotland, that we now know as the RIAS Andrew-Doolan Award, was founded by Andrew-Doolan in 2002, and we have much for which to thank him, both in his vision and in his generosity. Andrew-Doolan was himself an excellent architect as well as an outstanding entrepreneur, and his own excellent design work won a number of RIAS Regeneration of Scotland and Civic Trust Awards. One of his earliest projects, Ingram Square in Glasgow, was the first substantial renovation in the merchant city, and very many would agree that his visionary work there acted as a catalyst for the regeneration of Glasgow city centre. Andrew-Doolan believed, like the RIAS and like this government, that it is important to nurture and celebrate good design and to raise the profile of new Scottish architecture at home and abroad. And his benevolence and drive, together with the highly commendable work of RIAS, has given this award its prominence and prestige. Since 2005, following Andrew's death the previous year, the Scottish Government has contributed funding to the award and event along with the Doolan family. With a cash prize of £25,000, it is the largest architecture prize in the UK. The scale of the award raises its profile greatly, and it tells the world about the importance that Scotland places upon its built environment, and it also tells developers about the importance that this government places on high-quality design. And I agree with both Patricia Ferguson and Mike MacKenzie. I think Patricia Ferguson is right in saying that Scotland does value architecture and it's recognised internationally. But Mike MacKenzie is also right that we all have a responsibility to make sure that generally and popularly the importance of architecture is understood. And the projects in this year's Doolan's shortlist are astonishingly varied, with project costs ranging from no budget at all, the Ghost of Water Row in Govan, to a project cost of over £30 million, the Sir Duncan Rice Library referred to by Stuart Stevenson. And what these projects demonstrate is that creative excellence is not related to budget. What they show is the difference that can be made to individual lives and to the success of communities and places when the immense potential of good design as a multiplier of value is recognised and supported by enlightened clients. And I'd like to take this opportunity at this point to add my personal congratulations to the firms on the shortlist, to the congratulations that we've heard from across the chamber today. It is vitally important that there is a wide understanding of the value of good building design. In 2008, we increased the Scottish Government's contribution to the Doolan Award from £15,000 to £25,000. The additional Scottish Government contribution enables touring exhibitions of the shortlisted schemes to be created by the RIAS, and these are exhibitions which travel to places easily accessible to the public. And building greater public interest in Scotland's new architecture is something that is particularly important to me. The Doolan Award helps to generate a public and professional debate about quality and around the exceptional place that we want the Scotland of the future to be. Earlier this year, I launched Creating Places, our new policy of architecture and place, referred to by Joe McAlpine. And within our new policy, there is a commitment to continue to support this award. And also say to Annabel Goldie that the new policy is endorsed by the Planning Minister, and her points of the importance about bringing architecture and planning together. Within the new policy, I've also made a commitment to help support the RIAS Festival of Architecture in 2016. I thoroughly commend the incorporation on this initiative. The festival will be a celebration of Scotland's great architecture. It will raise awareness of the impact of good design upon our lives. And this is a very exciting opportunity for Scotland to promote our creative talent in architecture and to showcase our inspiring buildings and places. The aspirations of the RIAS for the promotion of Scotland's architectural talent, both at home and to the world, are very much aims that I share. And tying in with the RIAS Festival, we recently announced the designation of 2016 as a Scottish Government focus year on the theme of innovation, architecture and design. And I would say to Jean McAlpine in particular, that's a great, Jean Urquhart in particular, that gives a great opportunity for the educational aspects of what she wanted to see being celebrated in that focus year. The focus year will encompass Scotland's heritage and modern attributes in relation to architecture, engineering, renewables, fashion, textiles, science, technology and more. The theme also recognises the wealth of excellent opportunities to promote innovative architectural design in Scotland. And many of these opportunities will be found within the winners and the shortlisted projects of the RIAS Andrew-Doolan Award. And it is entirely right that in this debate today, the Parliament has recognised the contribution that both Scottish and international architects continue to make to the quality of the built environment of our country. And our best new architecture, such as that celebrated through the RIAS Andrew-Doolan Award, helps to support the development of a confident country with a strong cultural identity and a dynamic international image. The award helps promote Scotland as a creative and innovative place with a valuable contribution to make to the world. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the RIAS and the many project teams which have featured in the Doolan for their tireless efforts to help build a better and more prosperous future for Scotland. I look forward to tonight's ceremony where I will be in attendance, and once again I will have the pleasure of announcing this year's winner in the golden envelope. And no, Stuart Stevenson, I don't know who the winner is. From a shortlist which displays such quality, ingenuity and innovation, I am certain that this year's winner will show itself to be worthy of the Doolan legacy. Thank you very much, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. That concludes Mike MacKenzie's Members' Business, the Best Buildings in Scotland, and I now suspend this meeting of Parliament until 2:30 p.m.